Alright guys, TacticalRabbit here, and it's been a crazy busy day, but I'm still finding the time to make a video. Today I want to talk about the biggest storylines going into Black Ops 4, because the spicy little Twitter exchanges we had yesterday between eUnited and, well, initially Scump, and then a barrage of OpTic fans. It's pretty entertaining. The little Twitter spat, I guess you could say, we had yesterday led me to be thinking about what are the storylines, the biggest ones especially, going towards Black Ops 4. So, eUnited versus OpTic wasn't a storyline I was considering, but it's definitely one that we'll have to talk about now, considering what happened yesterday on Halloween. And there's a whole host of other potential storylines that we can talk about here. With the move to 5v5, a load of different roster changes, a load of people were dropped from a team or potentially left without a good reason, or at least a good reason from the perspective of the guys that they've left to be on that team. So there's definitely a few rivalries here between teams that were together in the past and between players that are looking to get revenge and prove that they chose the best option going towards Black Ops 4. So like if you enjoy, subscribe if you are new, and I guess we'll start with the eUnited stuff. So if you didn't see this, eUnited, they're always a bit of a troll on Twitter. I don't have too much of an opinion on this because I do find some of eUnited stuff a little bit too over the top, a little bit too unprofessional, I guess. This, I just thought it was pretty funny. They said we're dressing up as a top 24 champs team for Halloween, and they changed all their graphics to the OpTic Gaming colours. This was a screen grab I got yesterday of they changed their header as well, because of course OpTic plays top 24 champs. So it's pretty funny, I thought. But eUnited then tweeted this in response with the salt thing. So obviously they're just doing this for the attention and the clout, I guess you could say. But it adds a little bit of spice, right? People in the community are always talking about, oh, I want more storylines. I want more, trash talk, I guess. Want a reason to be excited about watching the games. And I think I maybe most people say that as in, I wish the players were a little bit more active in this sort of trash talk situation, other than just like Aches and Temp who tend to do it nowadays. But I think it's always a bit of fun and all getting involved in stuff like this. And at the end of the day, it's good PR for them, because I'm sure they gain a lot of followers out of this. And a lot of people saw that Scump is maybe being a little bit soft on this issue. I don't know. I don't have too much of an opinion, but this is how he replies. This one especially, I'd be embarrassed to rep that child shit, referring to eUnited, making these tweets about the organisation, about his play in the last year. So it's somewhat interesting to see that Scump is basically having a shot at eUnited here, and maybe he's not having a shot directly at the players, but definitely there's some animosity, it seems, between himself and maybe the rest of the guys on OpTic. I think Karma made a statement about, they're effectively just clout whoring, I guess, just making these tweets about OpTic Gaming because they know they'll get responses, which, is true. But that means there will certainly be a little bit of a rivalry there with the upcoming season. Obviously, there's a lot more to talk about. So let's go to CoD Gamepedia. Check this all down in the description box below. This is the list of pro points and Vegas qualification. So, top of the pro points list is 100 Thieves. We'll start there. These guys have a couple of different rivalries going on. Firstly, I guess we should talk about the OpTic Gaming situation, because Octane gets removed off the OpTic Gaming squad down here, and as far as I know, when I was listening to him talking about this on stream, or at least watching clips of him talking about it on stream, he wasn't really aware that he was necessarily getting dropped, and when he was dropped, okay, he got the 100 Thieves opportunity relatively quickly. But of course, these are the two biggest names right now. You have Nadeshot as the owner, founder of 100 Thieves that's getting crazy investment. OpTic on something, as at least in an organization's perspective, 100 Thieves and OpTic are on completely opposite career paths, I guess you could say. 100 Thieves is skyrocketing, and OpTic Gaming, with this recent OpTic India CSGO thing with the guy who was caught cheating, and the management of Infinite definitely being questionable, and even Crimsix talking in an AMA a couple months ago about how he's not happy with things that are going behind the scenes at the organisation. Pamaj, of course, leaving to go over to FaZe. A little bit off topic, but in terms of the directions of the organisations, Nadeshot's one is soaring compared to what OpTic Gaming is doing right now. And of course, Nadeshot originally of OpTic. A lot of people say that OpTic made Nadeshot to some extent. I would argue it's a little bit more two-way, but to some extent OpTic helped Nadeshot's career. And now we have this crazy situation where he has what seems to be a really competitive team going into Black Ops 4 up against OpTic Gaming with young talent similar to what 100 Thieves has put together. Added into the fact that you've got Octane on the team as well, formerly of OpTic Gaming. Had a pretty tragic time with them this year, but maybe he feels like he didn't deserve to be dropped, or he was forced into a role that he wasn't comfortable with, and it's his chance for revenge here. Maybe you guys have been watching scrims, 100 Thieves haven't been looking that good, but at the same time, it's only scrims. OpTic have always looked on top form at the start of the game in scrims and online placements in general, so how much that will transfer when we go over to LAN we'll have to see. Then we have Luminosity versus eUnited. So eUnited getting involved in another situation here. This is to do with the JKap situation. So, as you guys might know, I made a video a couple of weeks back about Sensor retiring from Call of Duty. This all stemmed from Luminosity dropping JKap. JKap was not aware he was going to be dropped. According to Nadeshot, he talked about it on stream. 100 Thieves have attempted to get JKap quite a long time ago, and Luminosity hadn't really responded to anything they were saying, and it was assumed by most people that, okay, JKap's going to be staying on LG, so let's not go after him as a target. And then, once a lot of teams had already formed, the Luminosity Gaming guys, I'm guessing it's from the team, they decided that they didn't need JKap anymore, or they wanted Classic back on the squad. Now, who was really behind this? It's difficult to tell, but JKap was dropped, at least in his own words. I think he's done a couple of tweets about this, about people being snakes and that sort of thing. That he wasn't happy with the situation as it went down from Luminosity and the way that he was, you know, kicked out the team to some extent to bring in this Classic situation. So Classic comes in, and then eUnited look at it and they say, well, you know, JKap's on the board, potentially reuniting him with Clayster. You know, Clayster and JKap as the duo to bring up young talent in Abizi could be incredibly strong. Talked about that as well in a few videos back. So they take the chance on JKap, and then it boots Fellow out the team down to this Evil Geniuses squad, which is where Sensor was meant to land, but it's Felony instead, and then Sensor was forced to retire. So, you know, if you're a Sensor fan, then maybe you have even more animosity to Luminosity than you did before. Maybe it's nothing you can say because it might be one specific player, or, you know, it's difficult to tell. But JKap definitely has some sort of sour grapes towards this Luminosity Gaming lineup, and proving that he now has the better team is definitely a huge storyline to watch as we go into Black Ops 4. In addition, Splice. We have to talk about these guys, because not only do the players on this team, are the players on this team not particularly well liked. Temp, you know, people think he's too big to his boots, he hasn't achieved anything, but he's talking shit on a lot of players, saying how Nadeshot was terrible at the game, but he's never actually won an event. A lot of people think of it like that. Accuracy, people don't tend to like this guy. You know, the stories that he was preventing coaches from watching their scrims as they were playing last year. Looney also has been a little bit of a villain at times. Not really sure what he's done to earn that title, but definitely is not the most popular of pros. It's difficult to have anything against Jerd, and then Aqua, I don't know, maybe people associate him with Temp because he was teaming with him last year. But Accuracy made this tweet at the end of August, actually, so a couple months ago now, but get a little juice and forget who they was drinking water with. I'm pretty sure this was just after the announcement of when Kenny and Pharaoh had joined 100 Thieves, around about that time. So Accuracy made this tweet, obviously not too happy that he was not the one going on to this huge prestigious organisation of 100 Thieves and getting a chance to compete. He felt that even though he performed incredibly well, the younger talents on his team were the ones being approached rather than himself, which of course makes sense, but at the same time there's a little bit of juice here between Splice and 100 Thieves, I would say, of Accuracy trying to say, okay, well, Kenny and Pharaoh, they were not the guys that you, Nadeshot, should have picked up. You should have gone after me. Or maybe he's happy with the team he's found here, and they'll go on to have some great success. I think Splice is a huge underdog right now. Then we have to talk about Envy, because they've picked up the old Evil Geniuses squad that of course won the Call of Duty World Championships about 2 months ago. We've talked for years about the eClassico, right? OpTic versus Envy. It always used to be the classic matchup. You know, Black Ops 3 especially, going into Infinite Warfare as well. They had so many great matchups over the times. And Envy quite often came out on top, especially towards the latter half of the season. Except, of course, Infinite Warfare, when OpTic were superb right at the very end. But now, Envy have the World Championship squad, in addition to Hook, who has looked unbelievable online, and they have Aches in the team. Like, does it get any better than this in terms of storylines? Aches versus OpTic is enough of a storyline as it is. And finally, Envy versus OpTic is going to be something to look forward to, because at times, Envy has been no match for OpTic, especially in the World War II season. The OpTic always seem to get the better of them, but now they really have a squad that can compete with this OpTic lineup. It's one of the oldest storylines in esports, and it's definitely coming back in full force this year. I can feel it, especially when we get to Champs and Aches is there on main stage facing down OpTic at the other side core. That would be exciting, but who knows what sort of roster changes we're going to see throughout the year. So I also want to talk on the European situation with the Reciprocity and the Mad Cat team. Now, Mad Cat's team don't yet have an organisation. I may make a video on what organisations could potentially pick these guys up, but it's too difficult to tell. There's so many out there, like Renegades is one of them, and G2 has come into Call of Duty now, but I very much doubt that another big organisation like G2 would go after guys with not much likelihood of success. They should make the Pro League, but anything beyond that would be something of a surprise. So I'm sure they'll get an organisation, but it probably won't be that prestigious, so it's kind of difficult to say as of now. But the situation as it went down is supposedly Alex told the old Unilad core, which is Zed, Wuskin and Shawnee, they were playing at the end of last season. They came top 4 at Anaheim, I think. They had some really good results, came top 6 at the Stage 2 playoffs. They even beat OpTic Gaming there. Didn't do quite as well at Champs, but they seem to be on an upward trajectory, but maybe they did need some sort of leadership to just take them to that next level. But they were definitely a European team that came out of nowhere. Everyone was expecting Red and Splice to be right at the top, but at the end of the year, it was Red and Unilad clear-cut number 2. So supposedly, Alex told his teammates that, I don't see this team improving in the future, I want to move elsewhere. So Alex left those guys. I believe they were happy to keep teaming with him into Black Ops 4, but no, he leaves them to go onto this team with Mad Cat, Josh, PT and Dave. I think this is being somewhat underrated. I do believe Josh is actually really quite solid player, somewhat underrated. Mad Cat's definitely a winner. He's done it multiple times in the past, and I expect him to get back to great form this year because he kind of had a lackluster World War II. PT's kind of the question mark here. We would expect Dave to be really good because he was insane in Infinite Warfare and very good in Black Ops 3 as well. Not that good this year, but sometimes when you team with the same players for too long, things can sour a little bit and your individual performance drops. And then Alex comes into the team. He was unbelievable at the end of the year. He only competed on a good team for a few months, already has more pro points than Dave and PT. So he was one of the standout players, and whether these guys can be better than Reciprocity, that's a really interesting thing to look at because I'm sure that Zed, Wuskin and Shawnee, joined now by Denz and Tommy, are looking at these guys thinking, wow, Red should be the number 1 European team, and I guess Jerd should probably be up there as well on that Splice lineup. But who's going to be the number 2 out of these guys? And there's definitely a little bit of tension here with Alex thinking he can do better than Reciprocity. And if Rec blow this other team out the park, then maybe Alex is going to regret his decision a little bit. So I think that's all the storylines I've really had to talk about. There is one I've just noticed here, with Zotic and Theory now being on a different team to Goonjar and Royalty, which are of course on the Lightning Pandas team at the end of last season. Maybe Lightning Pandas will pick these guys up. Maybe they don't think it's worth the investment, but splitting a team 2-2 like this, especially when they're very similar in pro points and very similar in their projected performance, I would say. Maybe there's a little bit of trying to one-up the other guys, but I don't think there's any clear animosity between the two. So, like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new. If I missed anything, leave it down in the comments section below. I think I got through most of the top tier ones, but maybe there's some other things we can think about. Of course, Rated versus Clayster is always going to be a rivalry. Rated always likes to have a little bit of fun with whoever he's playing, and remember that thing at PlayStation Invitational and Infinite Warfare when Clayster was still going out with Tiffany, and there was that situation, and Rated put Tiff in his clan tag because for some reason Tiff was making Clayster put Tiff in his clan tag, so Rated took the piss a little bit, and then Clayster got pretty fired up when they won. So after that situation, that's always been a little bit of a rivalry I like to keep in the back of my mind, but I don't think it's a major one for this season given the roster changes we've had. So thank you guys so much for watching as always, and I'll see you next time.